Thank you, Lola, so much. It's wonderful to be here. This is a wonderful conference. We don't have many like this in the United States. Canada's way ahead of us. Canada's population, I think, is going to be growing. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go there. I'm going to steal a line from most of the other speakers today and say, can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah. But how come nobody ever says, can you see me? Can you see what? That's an important part of audio description. Audio description is being mandated by law in at least a dozen countries now. In the United States, fairly recently, even though we were the home of description. It occurs in the arts, it occurs in television, film, media, but it's important in so many venues and conferences, educational settings. You don't know if everybody in your audience, in your class, has 20/20 vision. And you're in a big hall, a lot of people are going to be sitting far away, right? So part of audio description is making sure is self-description. You're not going to pay an audio describer to be with you at every presentation you make. So you self-describe, and I do not mean, hi, I'm Joel, I'm 65 inches tall, a head full of dark curly hair. That would be, that's a good right. How do you know, right? I can say anything I want. No. That would be not very good and not very accurate description. Self-description, what I'm speaking of course, is making sure that anything you present is accessible to people who are blind or have low vision. How do you audio describe text? You read it, right? Audio Description Associates, LLC, presents Audio Description, the Visual Made Verbal, with Joel Snyder, PhD, President. Audio Description Associates, LLC, Director, Audio Description Project, ACB, that's the American Council of the Blind, Multi-Languages Corporation Conference, November 26, 2016, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And at the bottom, American Audio Description Symbol. There's a logo there within a white square, 2 letters in bold black, an A and a D. The left side of that A is tilted toward the right, and to the right of the D are 3 curved lines. Period. Why do I say that? Because beginning describers, or describers who are not really thinking about the users, the consumers, will continue. They'll say, oh, the curved lines stand for sound waves. Yeah. No. If that's not there for sighted people, why are you saying it for people who are blind? Here's the thing I've learned about people who are blind. I've worked with them for over 40 years now. The eyes don't work so good. Or maybe not at all. But their brains are generally perfectly well intact. We don't explain, we describe. We don't tell, we show. I'll move on. What better way to begin a presentation on description than with description of 2 visual images, cartoons, and there's a reason for that. The first one here, there it is. Come on, machine. There it is. Good. My case in point. Anybody in the back there, can you read the caption at the bottom? What? What are you, blind? No, you're not blind. You're sitting too far away from the screen. Or maybe you're at home making a sandwich in the kitchen. The television is on in the living room. You don't miss a beat if you have the audio description on, right? You can't see it because you're in the wrong room. Anyway, so there's a little case in point. The Fan by John McPherson. On a stage, at left, a woman in a flowing gown, her hands clasped in front of her, stands before a kneeling man in a doublet and feathered cap. He croons, "Why must thy heart turn away from mine?" At right, a man at a microphone speaks. Basically, the guy with the goofy hat is Dick, because this babe has been running around with the dude in the black tights. The caption reads, many opera companies now provide interpreters for the culturally impaired. And again, description for sighted people. How many sighted people could look at this little squiggle at the top of his head and know, oh, that's a feathered hat? Oh, that's a doublet? Well, they were listening to the description. They would know, because the describer has done the research and looked at it more carefully, etc., etc. One more. Red and Rover by Brian Bassett. In the first panel, Red, a red-haired 8-year-old boy, is outdoors, lying on the ground against a tree, facing away from us, and his right arm is around Rover, a white, short-haired dog, a lab beagle mix. A leaf falls. Red announces, oh, brown. In the next panel, as Rover's tail taps, Red notes, orange, red, yellow. In the following panel, red, orange, yellow, yellow. Next, Red turns toward us, eyes wide, and tells us, dogs only see in black and white. The final panel, he takes a more full view of the tree, leaves scattered about the pair as Red continues, yellow, orange, brown, red, orange. Another thing, people who are new to description or new to working with this segment of the population is they'll hear something like this and go, what color? What's the big deal? Blind people don't want to know about color. They can't see color. They don't know about color. Well, two problems there. Kind of obvious, I think. Far and away, the vast majority of our audience has vision, has some degree of vision, has lost their vision over time. The biggest cause of blindness in the world is age-related, or age-related conditions. So most of the people we're describing for can see, sometimes can see, you tell them where to look, you know? So, and they certainly have a memory of that color, that hue, that frequency of light. But the second thing is that color is not just a frequency of light. It's not just a hue. Color is all kinds of things. Red is warm and means love, right? Green is envy. And in the U.S., of course, money. And so on, and so on, and so on. Color is important to us culturally, right? What color is a McDonald's French fries box? Of course it's red. What color's because red inspires hunger. It does. What color's the inside? No, well, gold and yellow vertical stripes, so that when you have 3 French fries left, it looks like you have 10. Color, you know, color, yeah. McDonald's, they're not stupid, these people, you know. Evil, maybe, but not stupid. That was a little nod to your friend with the lunch industry. That was great. Anyway, here's pop it up. Yeah, a little bit of history and cartoons, why cartoons figure prominently here. I wonder if anybody here in the great nation of Canada, why is that not there you go. I wonder if anybody here recognizes the photograph I have projected on the screen. It's a black and white photograph. A man seated at a table, and a round man, if you will. Round face, round horn-rimmed glasses, a shock of black hair over his ample forehead. He's wearing a double-breasted suit and a tie, and he's got a sheet of papers and a pen in his hands. And to his left, a microphone with the letters WNYC. That's sort of a clue. Yeah. You ever flown into New York City to LaGuardia Airport, right? That's Fiorello LaGuardia. He was the mayor of New York City in the 1940s, and a much beloved mayor, and a very savvy mayor. You know, there was a newspaper strike during his tenure. Well, he didn't take the side of the newspaper publishers. He didn't take the side of the workers. No, he took the side of the people. What were the people missing during this long newspaper strike? What's the first thing you turn to in the Sunday paper? Sports, get out of here! What's the first thing you turn to?
I got hockey news in my bag.
I understand. Help me out. They got comics in Canada. Of course, you turn to the Sunday comics or in color, right? No. Well, I don't know what's wrong with you. In America, we turn to the comics. Let me tell you, people they won't admit to it, but they do. Pierre LaGuardia knew that, and he went on the radio every Sunday morning and read the comics to the people of New York City. And he realized pretty quickly, there was no such thing as audio description formally. I mean, we've been describing it for millennia, but not formally. He was an audio describer because how can you read the comics without describing the pictures, right? Right? Another politician, Ronald Reagan, was a describer. You remember him, yeah? He was a describer. He didn't know it. In the 50s, whenever, no, earlier probably, he was a sports announcer. He was a sports announcer. That's how he began his career in Illinois. He'd have a game going in New York City. He'd be in a booth in Illinois, and a ticker tape is coming in. Ball one, strike one, pop fly out, double, triple. He got the data, he got the information, and then he would do the play-by-play from his head. He'd make it up. He was imagining the whole thing. He was describing the whole game based on the actual data and not even seeing it at all. And that actually goes to an important point when I train describers, is that description, it requires sight, but more importantly, it requires vision. And I employ a lot of people who are totally blind, who have tremendous vision, who have tremendous capacity with language to be consultants on the development of audio description scripts, and as voice talents, and as audio editors, because you know what? Nothing about us without us, right? That's an important phrase to remember regarding disability activism and such. One more politician for you. Now, this guy's not a describer, but the guy on the right here, you may recognize him. He's our president for the next month and a half or so. He had the boldness, the temerity to shake hands with an audio describer. What a brave guy, huh? Yeah, that's me there. And he a lot of things under the Obama administration, I must say, that have to do with audio description. He would have folks like me come and describe White House ceremonies, especially when he was dealing with accessibility, when he knew people who were blind and would be in the Rose Garden or whatever. I described both of his presidential inaugurals on ABC television, live, which is a tricky thing, of course, but all kinds of ceremonies at government agencies. For the first time during his tenure, the White House became accessible to blind people. There is now an audio-described tour of the White House, which I wrote, and actually I had a blind person voice it, and then we had to redo it, and so it's my voice now, and I guess it's introduced by Michelle Obama, and I guess we're going to have to change that. Anyway, but it's a really wonderful thing, because if you've ever been to the Washington White House, you just sort of file through. Nobody guides you. There are Secret Service agents there that will answer questions if you ask them, but they're not curators. It's like a little museum there. But having the audio described tour makes it a reasonable, viable, a wonderful experience for people who are blind. Also during Obama's tenure, speaking of the law and laws, the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act was signed, and effective 2012, there was a mandate for audio description on television. Teeny tiny, 4 hours per week for the top 9 broadcasters in the top 60 markets. Now that's really just about nothing. It's not much at all, because if you think about it, there are hundreds of broadcasters, and they're 24 hours a day and such. So we're hoping that will increase, although I gotta tell you, just this past week, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, was to consider at their, just this past meeting, a rule to increase the number of hours. It was scuttled. The last minute they took it off the agenda because they were getting vibes from Republicans in Congress that said, hold it, no new regulations, don't consider anything that is a regulation at this point until further notice, type thing. Now the good news, though, is that the Department of Justice actually came out last week with a new interpretation of the Americans with Disabilities Act that makes it clear movie theaters are now required to provide closed captioning and audio description at their screenings. And they've been doing it for a while, for the most part, but it's really one of them. They hand out their own equipment and stuff, so I think half the time never works. But we're going to take care of that too, because 10 years from now, it'll all be done via smartphone. You just download apps that listen to the movie, and then you download the description. And you know what? You'll be downloading the dub in whatever language, so that if the whole family wants to go to the movie, oh, but Grandma, it's only speaks Spanish. Well, that's the, no, well, you bring Grandma. Grandma got her smartphone. She's listening to it in Spanish while everybody else is listening to it in English. Through the smartphone. That's going to be here sooner than you think. And that's important. That's a big opportunity, too, I think, for people who are translators. Audio description, just so you know, I think of it as a literary art form. He holds his hands out to the sides. It's, no, let me narrow that, actually. It's literary, yeah. It's a kind of poetry, really. He brings his hands in closer to each other. You know what? It's a haiku. His hands are almost touching. A haiku. Huh. Yeah, it provides a concise, succinct, verbal version of the visual. It is a translation from images to words, studied that way in a number of universities in Europe these days, because it has been embraced as a kind of subtitling, essentially, that translator study. People are getting masters, my PhD is from Barcelona, etc. The visual is made verbal and oral, A-U-R-A-L, he points to his ear, and oral, O-R-A-L, he points to his mouth. Succinct, vivid, and imaginative words, phrases, metaphors, similes. With that kind of technique, we can convey that visual image that's not fully accessible to a significant segment of the population. I'm sure this applies here in Canada. American Foundation for the Blind recently collated statistics from our Department of Labor and came up with a figure of 21.2 million Americans who are either blind or have trouble seeing, even with correction, which is a loose definition of low vision. That's 8% of our population. What's 8% of the Canadian population? You know, that's a significant element, and there's a lot of opportunity there. And again, description is not just for blind people, you know. It's sometimes that visual image is not fully realized by the rest of us, huh? The rest of us folks. You know, the rest of us folks, we have that disability, we're dependent on light. Yeah? You know, if the lights go out in this room, put me with a blind guy, and I'm good. Right? And by the way, you know, all of you, everybody in this room will go blind. Yeah, if you live long enough. You're probably going to die first, though. But that's true. That's true. And sighted people, those light-dependent people, you know, they see, but they don't observe. They don't notice. But they're listening to the description, they would. It's useful for anybody, I think, who wants to truly notice and appreciate the visual, especially helpful as an access tool. And like I said, you have audio description in all of the arts now, began in performing arts in Washington, D.C. in 1981. I was part of that group that began doing this with the lead stage. But it's all the arts, media, museums now, but also conferences, classrooms, weddings, I described parades, rodeos, circuses, sports events. He even provided a description at funerals. Wherever the visual image is important to what's going on. Let me help you see what description is about by, I'm going to actually ask you all to be blind. And I'm blinding you all. Yes, I am. And you don't even have to close your eyes. I'm going to play a little excerpt from a major motion picture feature film, The Color of Paradise. Anybody know it? Good. Nobody does. Okay. Wonderful film. But it's, I stress, it's a professional film, you know, sound and visuals and all of that. But it's a marvelous film. I'm going to play a little segment for you, but I'm not going to show you the picture. So we're all blind. But I'm going to play you the original soundtrack. So you're going to experience it as a blind person would have when the movie first came out. They didn't have a description when it first came out. But just, I think you'll love it. It's really one of my favorite films. Let's give it a try here. Come on. All right. All right, in the interest of time, I'm not going to put you through anymore. Wasn't that great? It's a wonderful film. That was the original soundtrack.
What's it about?
No, I played it for you. Tell me what's it about. What did you hear? What was going on? Oh, an eagle. An eagle? What else? Did anybody else? So squirrels? What else? Let's think. Somebody is. What? Oh, horse carriage. Okay, all right. Anybody else? What did you hear?
Piglets.
Piglets? Go back to your football game. Piglets. What else did you hear? Goat? Oh, a boat. Oh, okay, so you're saying like maybe seagulls. The birds. Seagulls, yeah. You know what I think? I think you don't have a clue. Lola told me I was going to be speaking to like really sharp Canadians. You don't have a clue. No, that's right. Well, I'll tell you, that was the original soundtrack, and if you were blind and saw this in the movie theater, that's what you would have experienced. And you would have laughed, probably. Or you would have been having disturbing people around you because your companion would be going, no. With that, all right, I'll tell you what, let's add just the audio description. You're still blind. And see if it helps. I don't know, because you are all over the map. We've got pigs, we've got bushes, we've got squirrels, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think this is going to help very much. Let's describe. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but because it's only 2.5 minutes, and I only played about a minute, and that felt like an hour, right? But that will change now, which is interesting.
Muhammad kneels and taps his hands through the thick ground cover of round, curled leaves. A scrawny nestling struggles on the ground near Muhammad's hand. His palm hovers above the baby bird. He lays his hand lightly over the tiny creature. Smiling, Muhammad curls his fingers around the chick, scoops it into his hands. He stands and strokes his nearly featherless head with a fingertip. Muhammad sparks as the bird nips his finger. He taps his finger on the chick's gaping beak. He tilts his head back, then drops it forward. Muhammad tips the chick into his front shirt pocket. Wrapping his legs and arms around a tree trunk, Muhammad climbs. He latches onto a tangle of thin upper branches. His legs flail for a foothold. Muhammad stretches an arm between a fork and the trunk of the tree and wedges in his head and shoulder. His shoes slip on the rough bark. He wraps his legs around the lower trunk, then uses his arms to pull himself higher. He rises into thicker foliage and holds onto tangles of smaller branches. Gaining his footing, Muhammad stands upright and cocks his head to one side. An adult bird flies from a nearby branch. Muhammad extends his open hand. He touches the branch and runs his fingers over wide green leaves. He pats his hand down the length of the branch. His fingers trace the smooth bark of the upper branches, search the network of connecting tree limbs, and discover the joints. Above his head, Muhammad's fingers find a dense mass of woven twigs, a bird's nest. Smiling, he removes the chick from his shirt pocket and drops it gently into the nest beside another fledgling. He rubs the top of the chick's head with his index finger. Muhammad wiggles his finger like a worm and taps the chick's open beak. Smiling, he slowly lowers his hand. Aww, yeah. Now, my only question is, what happened to the horse carriage? That's what I must have decided that wasn't important. That one wasn't important. I decided to leave that out. I left out the seagulls. Yeah. You get the idea. Yeah. Now, a question though, and I love to do this to folks. You were listening very carefully, I can tell. So now, this was an excerpt though from the middle of the film. Muhammad himself was already described, what he looks like, his visage, right? But just from having listened so carefully to the audio description and whatever it says about Muhammad's actions and his interactions with the tree and such, and the birds, what do you tell me about Muhammad? What do you know about Muhammad from the description? Young boy, yeah? Boy, Muhammad, good, yeah. What else? Say?
The boy would take off the shoes before going down the tree.
Oh, well, he's a fastidious boy, and his mama and papa told him never to take his shoes off. I don't know. That's interesting. Well, I don't know about that because the shoes help you. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, you were just stretching there.
No, actually, I have a question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm intrigued as to why the name Muhammad was repeated over and over instead of replacing it with...
No, well, you have to be careful with pronouns in audio description, especially if you have more than one character. I don't know if it was overly repeated there. I mean, it was sometimes he in there for sure. I have the script, but no reason particularly, I don't think. But any other thoughts about Muhammad, though?
He loves birds.
He likes birds?
Yes.
Yeah?
He's very caring.
Kind soul, very caring. Wearing a shirt with a pocket and shoes. Nothing else, right? But no, he was already described. He's not a weird little boy. Right? Yeah. All right, well, I'll tell you what. In the interest of time, I wasn't going to show you the image. I'm going to do it now for like 10 seconds. Because within 10 seconds, y'all are going to go, I could have had the image. Or is that an American expression? I don't know. You're going to hit your head because you're going to realize, oh yeah, I should have seen this. I should have known. blind. He's blind. He gets to know his world through his hands. And the cinematographer shows us throughout that excerpt. He's focused in on hands, touching down, feeling the nest, tapping the leaves, etc. And so I use that kind of language. It inspires the choice of language in the description. I won't go through the whole script here, but lots of things like brown curled leaves. Well, color. What season is it? Brown curled leaves. Fall, of course, right. Just from the description, you know, the adult bird comes back. What do you include? The adult bird, well, it comes back in the next scene. So you want to be sure you get that in there, because it's like a foreshadowing. We weave the descriptive language around a film's sound elements. And you know, description, like much poetry, is written to be heard. So you have Muhammad taps the bird's beak. He tips the chick. He tilts his alliteration. Right? And in the same way, at the very end, he wiggles his, you can leave it down a little bit. He wiggles his finger like a worm. A very simple simile, an appropriate one with birds, right? Yeah. And the worm is not there. There's no worm. Why are you describing worms? You're supposed to describe what you can see for the people that can't see it. Well, if you invoke the image of a worm, if you use your imagination when you describe, you help people see in their mind's eye, even by evoking things that are not even there. I want to mention one other relatively new application for audio description, literacy, actually. And I worked on this at the Connecticut Children's Museum, doing an audio described tour for their museum, but also with their reading teachers who taught blind kids and sighted kids in this one class. Great program. What we played with was using audio description to make picture books, and short videos accessible, right? You know, I dare say a person who's working with blind kids, or a person who's trained in audio description techniques, working with any kid, would not hold up a picture of a ball here I've got projected on the screen and simply read the text, see the ball, turn the page. No. Audio description. I think the teacher, the describer might say, you know, that ball is red, just like a fire engine. I think that ball is as large as you are. It's as round as the sun, a bright red circle or sphere. Couple of words, teacher has introduced new vocabulary, invited comparisons, used metaphor or simile with 4-year-olds or something, right? So by using description, you make the book accessible to kids who are blind, of course, but I think you help develop more sophisticated language skills in any child who's listening, in any person who's listening. You know the phrase, of course, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Yeah, well, describers turn that on its head, I think. We say maybe, no, the describer would say a few well-chosen words can conjure vivid and lasting images. So, and this is being done more and more with children's programming. The Department of Education funds description of children's programming. I produced and voiced the description for Sesame Street for 6 years. Anyway, but you know, I didn't bring my Elmo clip with me, but I'm sorry. But anyway, it's important. It's an important part of education, I think, but increasingly for adults as well. I want to just take the time that I have remaining and go over with you some of the things I've learned about how describers work, how they should work. I've spoken and trained describers and done description in over 50 countries now, and I've learned a couple of things about how to do it most effectively. Indeed, I recall being simply amazed when I first encountered Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's brilliant detective, right? Sherlock Holmes, of course. Brilliant and incredibly observant. right? And I decided when I developed these fundamentals, that's got to be the first thing. Observation. It's got to be the first of 4 fundamentals that I keep in mind, a skill that Sherlock Holmes clearly honed. Observation. As the famous American philosopher once said, Yogi Berra, you can see a lot just by looking. It's so true. But we don't look. We don't observe. A describer must. You have to increase a level of awareness, become an active seer, not prophet, but develop visual literacy, if you will, and notice the visual world with a heightened sense of acuity and share those images. John Ruskin said we should seize what we see. Goethe said we should see with exactitude. And even more important, nothing about us without us. You know, the great American educator and philosopher, Helen Keller, said it a little differently. She said, those who have never suffered impairment of sight or hearing seldom make the fullest use of these blessed faculties. Their eyes and ears take in all sights and sounds easily, without concentration, and with little appreciation. Well, we can't do that as described. We have to take in everything and really notice what's going on. Tell me, what's going on here? What do you see? FedEx logo, very good. I should give out a prize. No, actually I shouldn't give out a prize. You know, that's one thing, a mistake that describers will make sometimes, and I understand it when their time is pressing and they have to make a shortcut, but labeling, naming is not describing. You say FedEx logo, it doesn't tell anybody what this looks like. Right? That's not a description. So look at it and give me a description of what you see.
Capital F, lowercase e, capital E, lowercase x.
Very good, very good. Colors maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, and now I ask you, what do you see? Go ahead.
There is an arrow.
They paid a lot of money to a graphics firm to come up with this logo. 5 letters smushed together? No, there's an arrow there. There's an arrow pointing from left to right because FedEx moves, FedEx delivers, right? And of course, you know, FedEx in Israel, it goes right to left. But anyway, that's not true. I made that up. But the point is, as Paul Valery said, seeing is forgetting the name of what one sees. It's too easy to just name it and dismiss it, not look at it. But this woman really looked at it. But she's heard this before, though. You, Snyder, yeah, I know. Okay. All right, one more quick test for you here. This is sort of fun, and those of you that spend your lives on the web, I'm sure have seen this already, but it's fun.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white
How much you get?
13.
13, but
But did you see the moonwalking bear?
what the hell? What? What's he talking about? There's no moonwalking bear. There's just a basket. Oh. Easy to miss something you're not looking for. Look out for cyclists. And I'm going to take a little time because I love these clips, but speaking of Sherlock Holmes, just to close this little bit on observation, do you know the origins of Sherlock Holmes? The origins of, you know, came from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Well, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a medical doctor, and he based the character of Sherlock Holmes on one of his professors in medical school, Dr. Joseph Bell. Yeah, because Bell, this is the 1900s, he was an expert diagnostician. And he didn't have no x-rays. He didn't have no blood tests, right?
In fact, I'll tell you, you know, hear how wonderful the Canadian health service is. Well, and that's good. In the United States, I go to my good private doctor, and he'll say, hello, and then he looks at his computer screen. That's it. That's the last time I see his eyes. Probably the entire appointment, which lasts 2.5 minutes. Because he's checking test results. Right? They didn't have test results in the 1900s. You had to look and listen and make a diagnosis. And this is how observation. This is how Dr. Bell did it.
Now, before I address the next patient, I would like you to look at him carefully and tell me everything and everything you can observe from his first appearance. What can you deduce? Mr. Stark.
He has a limp, perhaps a sprain or something.
No, not very much in other words. You see, but you do not observe. Can no one observe? Mr. Doyle, using your eyes, your ears, your brain, your mental perception, what can you deduce from this man's appearance?
Maybe they need medical attention. Why not ask him?
I admit he has few distinguishing features. All I can observe for sure from looking at him is that he comes from Liverpool, that he drives 2 horses, one day, and that he recently retired from the army. Still, I don't want to get some common man or a technical I'll explain. He has Liverpool clay on his toe caps. These are ammunition boots generally offered to the soldier on his discharge from the army. He has white equine hairs on one sleeve and bay on the other. 2 horses.
See? Still on the continent train.
Oops.
Yes, Mr. Doyle, you were saying. Yes.
I've been adapting the practical application of such tricks.
Oh, very good. Well, such doubts may well have a practical application to your career with this university. I will see you later. Every tiny detail, every button, every line, every gesture, every hair, every speck is of use and value to us.
Well, now, Dr. Bell just embarrassed Arthur Conan Doyle in front of his whole class of colleagues, future doctors, and his girlfriend. You notice the girl with the curly red hair, right? And he, little Scottish Spitfire that he is, he don't take that lightly. He's going to challenge Dr. Bell. And I love the challenge.
Is that a challenge?
I would rejoice in the challenge.
Succeed with this watch, and you'll finish.
And if I fail,
You'll apply to pursuing matters of crop over the money, with all the resources at your disposal.
agreed. But there are hardly any data. The watches we recently cleaned results in my most significant facts.
Yes. I was sort of thinking myself. And, Doctor, I feel this surely illustrates the limitations of your so-called method.
Possibly so. The paper watch is more than 50 years back. Whoever last owned it was a man of untidy habits, very untidy and careless. He was left with good prospects, but so were his chances. He lived for some time in relative poverty, with few short intervals of prosperity. Finally, he took to drink, and his mind went. And that's all I can do.
This is unworthy of you, Dr. Bell. I cannot believe you at the center.
I'm sorry.
This is my father's watch. You have somehow got wind of our family history, and now you pretend to deduce this knowledge in some fanciful way. To expose a painful secret in such a fashion is not merely unkind. It's pure malice.
Jack Doyle, viewing the matter merely as an abstract problem, I have not considered your personal feelings. I assure you, I have no knowledge of your family circumstances. You could be Through my lens, I can see many onlookers' marks, hence the hard times. But clearly, he had occasional moments of prosperity where he could not have redeemed his bread. Finally, look at the scratches around the keyhole. Mark where the key has slipped. What seven man's keys could have scored those good. And he was here. He began mysteriously disturbed and destructive. Well beyond mere brokenness. So, have I shown you something at last?
Yes.
Observe the small facts upon which large inferences can be made. We observe. We don't make large inferences like Holmes might, but we observe. And then the next fundamental of audio description training, editing. Most of what description is about learning what not to describe. Editing, we observe and we throw out most of it. We have to ask ourselves what is most critical to an understanding, he points to his head, and an appreciation, his hands on his heart, of the image. We have to find what's most valuable, what's most important, what's most critical, what is the essence. And that's the real truth. That's what any artist is trying to convey. Oliver Wendell Holmes, of all people, said the great struggle of art is to leave out all but the essential. Get rid of the clutter. George O'Keeffe, the great American artist, it is only by selection, by elimination, by emphasis, that we get the real meaning of things. And even Tiger Woods, he didn't say anything about description, but he's in an ad here for a computer company. His picture, the color photograph, he's squatting on a green. He's got his putter up against his left shoulder, and his elbows are at his knees. But his palms are cupped around the brim of his hat, folded down around the sides of his face, like blinders on a horse. Sure, what do blinders do for a horse? They keep it focused to achieve an end. You don't want to be distracted by all this other. Same with Tiger Woods. His end, of course, is to make the putt. He doesn't want to be distracted by everything else. So sometimes to accomplish more, you have to see less. And that's what the concept, the fundamental of editing is about. Plus, you develop an understanding of blindness, using color, going from general to specific, directional information, and understanding, even doing research on the visual art you're describing, on the film, on the theater, because you have to get in the mind of the artist or the curator. As I said earlier, that will influence the words you use to describe. It doesn't mean that you're going to tell people, oh, well, the artist did this. No, but it will influence how you describe. And indeed, the words, language is the third fundamental, and that's where you spend the most time. I fervently believe less is more. We transfer it all, we translate it all to words, objective, vivid, specific, and imaginatively drawn words, phrases, metaphors, similes. Take a look at this building here. I happened to find a picture of a building in Toronto. And that, you know what building that is, right? I don't know, I looked at it, it's the first Canadian place. Is that the address? Okay, yeah. Well, you know, look at the angle of this photograph. It's emphasizing, I think, its height. Yeah. So how would you describe to the person who can't see the photograph the tremendous height of First Canadian Place? You certainly would say, it seems to me, it is, I got it right here, 951 feet tall. What? You're shaking your head, why not? It is, it's 900.
That probably doesn't tell anything to the blind person.
What? No, 951 feet. That's tall, yes?
Looking for where?
Well, looking from where? Perspective, that's true. And not only that, you know, if you go home tonight and you tell your significant other about the delightful presentation of audio description, and you say it was in this room, and the room was, oh golly, the room was 1,000 square feet. Now, if I was your significant other, I would say, that's nice, dear. Now tell me how big the room was. What, 1,000 square feet, 951 feet? What does that do? Now, you could say the room is as large as a tennis court. Or the room seats so many people. Or First Canadian Place has got like 95 stories or something, 90 stories. It's as high as 90 elephants, one stacked on top of the other. Actually, it's taller than 3 football fields, each stacked on the other vertically. You know, find your own simile or metaphor, and that will create a more vivid picture in the mind's eye. Jonathan Swift said, vision is the art of seeing things invisible. We're trying to provide vision, not sight, vision for people. And sometimes you have to talk about worms and football fields and elephants. You've got to see those invisible things. But Mark Twain, American humorist, said it's even better, I think. He said, you cannot depend on your eyes when your imagination is out of focus. I like that. You got to use your imagination to be a vivid describer. Now, you got to be vivid, but you got to be succinct. You got to be simple. You know, less is more, and you probably know this quote because you guys work with words. You know, in the 17th century, Blaise Pascal, a mathematician, actually, philosopher, he wrote a long letter to a friend, and you know how he closed the letter, right? He closed his letter by saying, where is it? I've only made this letter longer because I've not had the time to make it shorter. That's what a describer must do, is be concise, is edit. You edit the things you see, and then you edit the words. And editing your own stuff, you know, who wants to do that? My precious prose? No, right. So you want to help folks see vividly, but one other element that's important to remember, you have to maintain a degree of objectivity. Describers sum up this idea of objectivity with the acronym WYSI, WYSI, which, of course, hello. That's a mysterious describer who doesn't agree or something. WYSI stands for what you see is what you say. The audio describer is like a verbal camera lens. Qualitative judgments are interpretations of what we see. Get in the way. No, blind person, brain, perfectly intact. They just want to have replaced the sight, the vision, if you will. They don't need to be told about it. They don't need an interpretation. Okay? So if I'm looking at Lola here, and I'm going to make this up. Lola is sitting there, and she's crying. She's crying. Tears are streaming down her face. Yeah, she is so sad. She's distraught. Pretty good description of a sad, of a crying Lola, yes? Yeah, thank you. He's nodding there. Go to the back of the class. Lola's not sad. I don't know if you know this. She found out this morning she won the Canadian lottery. Yes, and she's so thrilled. She's given up that whole multi-languages corporation thing. She's going to buy herself an island off the Bahamas. Isn't that right? And she's taking the whole family. Don't worry. Sorry. She's taking everybody, right? She's happy. Tears of joy. Right? And who am I to interpret an outward physical manifestation as sadness? No. You see tears. You see crying. You don't see sadness. You don't see anger. You see outward physical manifestations, and that's what you talk about. That's what you see. Tell them what it is. What is it that you see that makes you think sad, angry, whatever? Just tell them what you see and let them think about it. That's the most important thing. And it's not easy to do because Anais Nin The diarist said it so well. We're human beings, man. We're subjective people. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. So it's very easy for us to just stick in there. Whatever. No. Avoid the interpretation. And speaking of cartoons, we've got a great cartoon in America called Pickles. I don't know if you see it here. Opal and Earl, an older couple. They're out in a yard, and Opal says to Earl, "This yard looks like a mess, Earl." Earl turns to Opal and says, "Henry David Thoreau said, 'It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see.' Me, I see a wild, unclaimed area of indigenous flora, flourishing and thriving as nature intended." Opal says, "Yeah, I see a husband who's full of baloney." Objectivity, right? Finally, vocal skills. In addition to building that verbal capability, a describer, or at least the person who's voicing for the describer, because the person you hear on television is generally, unless it's coming out of my company, generally not the person that wrote the description. It's a hired kind of voice talent who knows about description, hopefully. And that person realizes that you make meaning with your voice. You make meaning with your voice. A good voice talent can take mediocre description and make it work. A bad voice talent can take wonderful description and ruin it. Vocal skills, because 99% of description is voiced. So we make meaning with our voices. I'll just do a couple of quick exercises before we finish up here. I've got a statement for you here. I think we can all agree with this. Vocal skills, yeah, here you go. Woman without her man is a savage. Okay, shall we move on? I think, what's wrong? What's wrong? No. I said woman without her man is a savage. What's the problem? Oh, hey, what, and how would you say it? No, put in another comma. Woman, her, woman, without her, man is a savage. Pretty good. All right, you think you're so smart over there. Try this one. Okay, that is that. That is not. Just say it aloud so it makes meaning. What? Oh, come on now. That's all right. Americans are much worse at this stuff. They know where to go. Yeah. It's just, and it's so clear when it just jumps out and bites you on the leg when you speak it correctly, right? That is. That is not. It's not. Duh. Right. And finally, with vocal skills, I think it's important to remember the concept of consonants. This is something that I developed a few years ago because I was in that first group in 1981 at Arena Stage, and we were so conscious of this idea of objectivity that we decided when we voiced the description, it should be voiced like this. Now she's walking here. Now he's walking there. Now they're doing this. Now they're doing that. Now they're moving to the right. Now they're moving to the left. Like a golf announcer, And I can't think of anything that would be more distracting, more subjective. You got a happy scene, and his describer is droning on. Now they're doing this. Now they're singing happy birthday. Now they're no, come on. No, your voice must be in consonance with what's going on. You're not in the scene. You're not an actor. You don't become an actor. But your voice, the tone, must suggest what's happening. And sometimes that aids you in coming up with the right words or getting rid of a word or two. Just having that suggestion with the voice can be very helpful. That's the 4 fundamentals of audio description. I'm going to put up my contact information there. Oh, and look, I wrote a book. The Visual Made Verbal, available at fine bookstores near you. Actually, probably not, but it is on Amazon. And it is available at the American Council of the Blind's website and its own website, thevisualmadeverbal.net. And I've got my next two trainings are one in Washington, D.C., and then one in Reno. These are in the States, of course. So, and with that, I'm open for questions if there's time for questions. Thank you.
What is involved in the training? Are you talking months, years, days,
Yeah.
ongoing, forever and ever?
Good question. You know, I really loved the discussion earlier about so many people talking about certification and accreditation.